Hi, welcome to this week's edition of the Blues Talk. Again, John, Dave and myself are going to look back over our brutal performance up in Ravenhill at the weekend and look back over our the final nails that went into the coffin of the Pro 12 for our season this year.
I think you actually mispronounced that, because for a performance that bad, the word is brutal.
Brutal.
Brutal. And it was brutal. It was
got off to a flying start though.
Yeah, and then stopped and then crashed.
But I wonder though, was it anything to do with the 100 minutes we played 5 days before? Or was it just that this team has given up?
It's got to be something to do with it. Like, I mean, you know, there is a factor.
I don't think they've given up. If they'd given up, they wouldn't have continued to demonstrate, you know, incompetency, but kept trying until the end the way they did. I mean, in fairness, they didn't give up. Was the 100 minutes a factor? Possibly, but not after 11 minutes. It wasn't.
No, and also, you know, not having 15 men for 20 minutes was a bit of a factor.
Yeah.
Let's face it, especially missing Sean O'Brien, although he probably could do with the rest, but. You know, not having him for 7 minutes.
He played about 5 games.
Wasn't the best. Yeah, but he did play 100 minutes. Both him and Heaslip played 100 minutes the week before, which I thought was a bizarre call from whoever made that call, presumably Matt O'Connor, in that the one position that didn't play 100 minutes, he started Dominic Ryan, who was on the bench, and Jordy Murphy, like the two of them swapped.
I mean, I don't think the 100 minutes the week before it was a significant factor beyond. I mean, it might have been a factor after an hour, but the game was well lost by the hour mark.
Exactly.
The game was well lost by the half-hour mark. So I don't think fatigue was an issue. I think that
there was a mental issue, all right, but I don't think it was a physical fatigue. You know?
No, I don't think so. I don't think. I mean, ultimately, the way we're playing at the moment, Ulster were the better team and deserved the win. They played considerably better than us, and that's what it's come down to. I mean, we're in whatever position we're in the league. And the thing about a league is generally you end up where you deserve to be.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to do. If we finish fifth, if we finish sixth, that's pretty much where we deserve to be.
Yeah.
Because we're not finishing fourth now.
No. Well, we couldn't even scrape together a losing bonus point to. But like it was, look, I suppose the only positive out of it is Ben Teo keeps improving at 13.
Yeah.
He nabbed another try, his 4th of the season.
Yeah.
We just get that out of the way, I suppose, and we can then.
And we can be really miserable in comfort.
And it was a really good try as well, in fairness too.
That was great.
Lovely, great handoff and a little step.
It looks so positive.
Sean does well here. He throws Henry out of his way. I mean, it all started so well. I mean, because there was here it is, great hand on.
Nice line, hand off, and then
good
little
pace
flick
as well.
at the end. Look, he just ran outside your man. He didn't need to.
I think Tommy Bowe was playing a game of chicken with him. In terms of Tommy Bowe slowed down in the hope that he'd slow down and think twice about what he was doing. But he showed a good turn of pace actually as well for a big man.
He showed great feet. Yeah. So you know, just that it may not have been much of a but you'll see it here now, where he just feigned to one side and there you go, outside just enough to get onto a weak shoulder so you get across the line. Again, it wasn't. That's where the try was made. That handoff, and that was Roger Wilson. I think he handed off. You know, not some little scrum half.
He kind of danced in and then danced out and used the fend to get that extra bit of momentum.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing people have talked about him being, will he be a power player? Is that the way we're going to go? And actually, he's been our best player in this period of time, but it's not because of his power play. It's because of his footwork and because of
bit of power there too. Now,
there was a bit of power.
Ask Roger Wilson how he feels about his power.
Everyone needs a bit of power. I mean, that's not how he gets. I mean, he could run up to Wilson and handed him off. And without the footwork and stuff, A, he wouldn't have got through the gap, and B, he wouldn't have got past Tommy Bowe. So
yeah. No, I'm not saying he's no footwork. I'm just saying he's got both.
Oh, he has the lot. Yeah. No, I think he's becoming a very good player for us. I mean, he's since he's come in the last, we'll say 5 or 6 games, he's been our, most consistent standout player over that period of time. Now, that's not saying much. That's a bit like being the world's tallest dwarf. So.
Well, we failed to score.
After
next
that.
70 minutes.
Yeah, that's pretty.
And we conceded 26 points. Like Ulster played great. You have to give them their dues. But as you said, John, they played those 70 minutes for 50 minutes. We only had a full complement on the pitch for 50 of those 70 minutes.
In fairness to Ulster, this is the traditional politeness one finds in the northeast. When Sean O'Brien was off the pitch, they didn't score. That was really nice of them. I thought that was really good.
Yeah. However, after ending their season for the last 4 or 5 years in a row, either Heineken Cup final, Magners semi-final, Pro 12 final. You know, every single year we ended their season. So, you know, they've ended ours this year. So, you know, what goes around.
I suppose so. But just out of curiosity, I went back and I looked at the two team sheets and compared the game on Friday against that Heineken Cup final 3 years ago. And there was 12 of the 23 of the Leinster panel that were playing. Like, you know, the core of the team is still, I know there's a few notable absentees, but there's still, the core of that team is still there. And it didn't look like, you couldn't say that team looked like a Heineken Cup winning team the way we played against Ulster.
But the spine of that team wasn't there, and that's the important thing.
That's true, Dave. But like, it's sad to see that there's Lions in there, there's Irish internationals that didn't look like that quality of player.
No, and maybe that's where Ulster maybe that's you're saying like we had 12, Ulster had what, 8 or 9. Maybe they've turned over their team better than we have. They've transitioned better. Maybe they're ahead of us in that regard. And maybe their players have less miles on the clock. In terms of, you know, we've a lot of players playing a lot of rugby for a lot of teams since 2012. I mean, most, you say how many went on the Lions tour? How many have been on Irish? Played in autumn internationals things.
Well, just as you said, I think there was 12 or 13 that played for Ireland against Scotland. Right? We're in the panel for the Ireland against Scotland match. Yeah. I think there was only 4 from Ulster in.
I see we were retired now, Jason.
Come on. Okay.
I don't accept. But I just said.
That's you're making excuses for the team.
I don't accept that we were tired. I was joking. But no. But what I'm saying is, I mean, maybe Ulster have been better at bringing through newer, younger players, faster, fitter, stronger, faster. To misquote Daft Punk. But you know, that's the way of rugby. That's how it goes. I mean, it's part of a team's job is to transition and manage that transition. The question is, how has ours been managed?
Well, ours has been a stark decline. Like, again, I just look back on our record this year is, you know, pretty awful. I think we've lost 8 and drawn 3 in our Pro 12 season compared to last year. We had won 17, drew 1 and lost 4, and the previous year we won 18 drew 1 and lost 3. So, you know,
and we won the Heineken Cup while we did it.
Exactly.
It's, you know, it's like spinning plates and juggling fire at the same time. We managed it back then.
Are we in terminal decline, or is it just
no? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're not in terminal decline. We were as you said yourself earlier. We were a lick of paint away from the Heineken Cup final or European Champions Cup final against the most expensively assembled side in the history of the game.
Well, that was my sorry. That was my point, though. Was, you know, the first 15, for want of a better expression, did get within a lick of paint of getting into the Heineken Cup final, European Cup final. It's the team that goes out while the internationals are away, the ones that, you know, plays the Dragons or plays Glasgow at the start of the season, and you know, like, our record stands for itself.
Look, whatever way you look at it, yes, we could save our blushes with a Champions Cup semi-final, but, you know, we did have a piss easy draw, and, you know, we managed to get through the quarter final against Bath. To be honest, I don't know how we did. So, you know, I'm not excusing away the lads still put up a great show against Toulon and all that.
Well, see, just to go back to that, people say, oh,
over the season,
people say we had a piss easy draw, and they use it as a stick to beat O'Connor with. The reason we had a piss easy draw is because O'Connor won the Pro 12 last year.
That's true.
You know, that's why we ended up with the runners up.
Mightn't have as easy one next season.
Well, maybe we won't. Maybe he will. I mean, people forget that sometimes being a lower seed against better teams, against teams that have succeeded and have fallen apart, isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, we had the champions of France and the runners up in France in our group the last 2 years. Would you consider them difficult? No, because it was Castres.
not last year, no. But there's still a bit of luck, even though we were promised that there'd be no easy groups anymore, no Italian teams, and, you know, well, there's still one Italian team, but, you know, it's not. It's not as hard as they're making out, even though there's only 20 teams in it now.
It's going to be harder next year because there's going to be fewer Welsh teams. I mean, the Welsh teams kind of spread the Italianness out throughout the league, with the exception of Ospreys.
I think there'll be exactly the same number of Welsh teams.
I'm hoping that I'm going to assume that Connacht are going to get their arses together.
No way, I can't see that.
You can't see them qualifying?
Not a chance. They're nailed on for 8th place, as far as I'm concerned.
They're 5 points off.
Scarlets have to play like the Willow Park under 12s, and that's a disappointing thing for both
the IRFU and Joe Schmidt now, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Because it means that basically the entire year's investment has been wasted.
Connacht have to play Ospreys at home and I think Zebre away. Okay, they're going to win the Zebre game, but they're already behind Scarlets, and Scarlets have two. They've Cardiff at home, and then they've got one of the Italian teams in the last game. So they're home free, and Edinburgh, could Connacht sneak in ahead of Edinburgh? Not with their current injury crisis. Like they're down 12 people or something out of a fairly narrow squad to begin with. So poor old Connacht, you know, good.
I think we'll get to Connacht later. I think you want to concentrate on Leinster at the moment, don't you?
Yeah,
good in all of a season as they have as they had early on. They're kind of falling away.
But their form has just fallen off a cliff, just like ours. Like
but they've excuses like 12 injuries, you know, and a very thin squad. That's all.
What's
I'm saying. We have very few injuries. Reece Ruddock and Fergus McFadden. That's pretty much it.
Struck me watching the match on Friday night was that we seem to play, you know, on paper, as I said earlier, we had 13 of the Irish team that won the Six Nations for the second consecutive year, but we just looked like a bunch of individuals playing.
Yeah.
When Ulster played, they actually looked like a team, and there's some of their parts were they look far superior. Their halfbacks were controlled the game. Like if you look back, and this isn't a go but at Jackson, if you look back, he was subbed off 3 years ago against us in the European Cup final. Very easy for them to have discarded him to line through
Humphreys.
and gone for Humphreys, or even gone into the market. Like they seem to have money to burn. They were bringing over a lot of South Africans. They could have done that, but they stuck with him. They showed a lot of loyalty to him, and they brought him through. They nurtured him. You know, it just doesn't seem to be the same, perhaps, loyalty in Leinster to nurture somebody through.
I think Paddy Jackson's a better player than Ian Madigan.
Well, maybe so.
I think,
but they stuck with him, Dave.
Oh no, I think if we had, I think we would have stuck with Ian McKinley.
But we wouldn't have. Would we have stuck because we're so driven by we've got to win? You know, there's so much pressure on because they've just built these enormously high standards. Would we have said no? We're going to give this kid coming through. He's a fine prospect. We're going to give him 3 years. Or would there have been such, you know, like there's media campaigns and Twitter campaigns now for O'Connor because, God forbid, we didn't win a trophy. We could only win 2 trophies. We didn't win one this year.
Well, Ian Madigan, is 2 years older than Paddy Jackson, right? I'd love to see what would have happened if he had been given the same backing as Paddy Jackson. We don't know. He might have fallen on his arse. He might have been spectacular. We won't know. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, the hand that was dealt to Matt O'Connor in his first season by Joe Schmidt was Jimmy Goppert, and
doesn't have to pick him. I'm sorry, he didn't.
No, absolutely. Like, a lot of us thought Ian Madigan deserved an arm around the shoulder in the first season, and he deserved a bit of time with, you know, rather than getting the shepherd's crook straight away and having Goppert in there. But on the other hand, that was what Goppert was there to do, was to push him for his place.
Yeah,
and that's what he did. Unfortunately, both of them have similar holes in their game as well. You know, they're both great break on them. I don't
think Madigan was ever a live runner to be a starting out half for a team that hoped to win a European Cup.
Yeah, but if you remember coming up to this, when was it, about maybe April last year? The week before we played to Toulon, he was playing all the matches at out half. He played against Munster in the Aviva Stadium, and then
got the shepherd's crook just before.
I just don't think he's. I mean, he is what he is. He's a really good utility back. But I don't think he... I mean, would you pick him ahead of... As things stand, would you pick him ahead of Paddy Jackson? I wouldn't.
No, you couldn't.
Even, like, Joe picked Ian McKinley ahead of him. Or not Ian McKinley. Keatley ahead of him at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And, you know, why do we always go out and sign a backup out half? Every year we do it.
Well, it seems to be the thing that Ian Madigan is trusted to come off the bench at 10, but he's not trusted to start at 10. Like if Sexton is fit, it's always Madigan on the bench behind him because he's versatile, and if he's not, then it's Paddy Jackson starting, or even Ian Keatley.
I take your points completely about Madigan, but I do admire what Ulster did to Jackson.
Oh yeah, no, they did exactly the right thing. They nurtured him through, and it's unfortunate that he's left. I mean, it would have been nice if JJ Hanrahan had been able to be, but he had an Irish international in front of him. It's a slightly different situation. But it's just a pity he's lost the Irish game. And I mean, people say about Madigan, Madigan is still, you know, he's a regular in the Irish squad because he I mean,
because of his versatility.
Do you know what he is? He's this generation's Paddy Wallace. A really, really good player. A really, really good footballer.
Who ends up at 12.
who ends up at 12 because he's not quite good enough to start for a top team. And remember, Ireland aren't a team that's looking nowadays to finish ahead of Scotland and Italy and hope, mid-table. Ireland's a team that's this season will be regarded by the Irish players and management as a disappointing season because we didn't win the Grand Slam. That's the level we're at. That team is going into the World Cup, and you begin to sense the whispers coming out of the Irish players that they're going to this World Cup to win the World Cup. So there's a different level. I mean, Madigan is operating at and of course with Leinster are a team, it's regarded as a disaster if we don't win at least one of the 2 trophies we're in. So that's the level. It's a very, very rarefied atmosphere he's at. And just been not quite as good as the best out half in the world isn't actually that shameful.
Certainly isn't.
Well, he's got something a lot of guys don't have, is the two Six Nations medals.
2 Six Nations medals, a couple of Heineken Cup medals, and he deserves every single one of them because he's worked his arse off for them. People think that if you don't want Madigan to start, you're against Madigan. I think Ian Madigan has a great future. Although I thought that Darcy should have started last week and he did, and it didn't work out, but whatever. I think Madigan has a huge future at Leinster as a 12. I really, really do. And I think with an ever improving Ben Teo outside him and Johnny Sexton inside, I mean it's a whole different kettle of fish. Jimmy Gopperth and a guy just out of rugby league.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see in when will we see? November or so. And
there was also another issue that people forget. I mean, the gap between Gopperth / Madigan and the academy out halves, right? They were academy out halves. Next year, Cathal Marsh is out of the academy. He'll be in the senior squad, hopefully. And the guys who are in the academy will be in their second and third years. Yeah, so I mean, you've got a lot more experience there, a lot more backup. People say, why didn't these guys get game time? Because they were students, basically. Now they're closer to being full-time pros.
Yeah, you'll have Crosby, who's kind of, is he a 10, is he a 12? And Ross Byrne is the young lad. He's still under 20. He's gone to the World Cup.
And he looked great. I mean, in when we saw him anyway. So there's options. I mean, it's not as bleak. Yes, we are in transition, right? But it's not all doom and gloom. I mean, you look at the amount of players that we have forwards. I mean, obviously there's issues around lock. But front row, back row, we have got. There's no club in Europe has the talent we have. That's why everyone's trying to poach them.
Yeah.
One bit of surprising news was the press conference that Joe Schmidt and the IRFU held was last Thursday. Like, I've never seen that happen before.
I thought that was very strange, and I'll tell you why. Irish coaches, maybe not quite as successful as Joe Schmidt, but pretty successful Irish coaches, have had worse things said about them by provincial coaches and never come out like that.
I don't think it was Joe taking it personally, because if you notice, it was Nucifora and Schmidt. I don't think it was anything personal that way. I think it was just they wanted to set the record straight. This is how the thing works, and don't mind any. Matt O'Connor hasn't done himself any favours with the. Like, for a start, he's alienated his second string players,
possibly, yeah,
who you could say have let him down. In fairness, because anyway, but
they probably have put the pressure on him. In fairness to them,
he's alienated them by saying, "Well, we didn't have our best players." What does that say about the guy who was replacing the best players? It says, I don't have much faith in him. So that's a cyclical argument.
In some cases, yeah, it is. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Secondly, he's come out and said and criticised the national system, which is pretty much the envy of the world. I think he was ill-advised. A lot of the things he said in the media, he's been ill-advised at some of the things he said.
It reminds me of 15 years ago or less, maybe, when Gatland started having a pop at and there's only one way this ends.
Yeah, in tears.
We see. I mean,
for the coach, because you don't win against the IRFU and the boys.
No. Well, the question is, I mean, we talked about the transition, the coaching staff and the playing staff. So there's also transition in Leinster Rugby's administration. And would O'Connor have been allowed to be so indiscreet if Peter Breen were still there?
Possibly not.
Maybe that's a fall off.
I thought it was just a very strange thing that happened, and I think I don't think it bodes well for him, to be honest with you. And I'm kind of drawn because I don't think it's in the IRFU mentality to sack coaches, especially with, if someone has a contract, have a contract. But the other side of the coin, the way O'Connor's going about it, it just seems that he's he's making a noose for himself.
I think that there's no way that the IRFU or Leinster will get rid of him based on the rugby, right? But based on the other stuff, there might be an issue there. If he can't, I mean, all the provincial coaches have to work with the national coach.
Yeah.
And you also notice how Joe Schmidt dropped Pat Lamb's name there and said, and now Pat Lamb wouldn't be a poster boy at the moment after being disciplined by the
and
Pro
he's
12.
Failed.
And well, you could say he's failed, but
well, you can't say he's failed. He had one job to do and he hasn't done it.
Okay, he said that Robbie Henshaw was available for the Scarlets match, but that he rang Pat Lamb and said, "Oh, listen, Pat, Robbie's he has a bit of a strain, and be great." And Pat Lamb just said, or Joe Schmidt quoted Pat Lamb as saying, "That's fine, I understand completely, Joe.
I want my job for the next few years.
Don't worry about it." Whereas I get the impression that by saying that he was implying that maybe Matt O'Connor wasn't quite as understanding when it came to him. Now, in fairness, it's Robbie Henshaw is the only guy that he's really worried about, whereas Matt O'Connor has 13 guys that he's got to worry about.
Connacht have a considerably less strenuous level of expectation. Than Leinster. So I don't know. You're right. I mean, Gatland found out to his cost. You don't win against the Irish.
You made a good point there as well. Like when you start alienating the second 15, like I think it was Matt Williams did something similar. That there was the A's and the other guys, the rest, the bag holders.
It's happened on a few Lions tours,
and the bag holders just completely revolted and didn't feel part of the team, and as a result, didn't try when they were selected.
Yeah, well, it's a circular argument.
I know that for example, I know talk about the was it the 89 tour? No, 93 tour, where there was a big split between the first 15 and the dirt trackers.
Donuts.
No, they were 89. Donuts were 89, but in 93, and Brian Moore still doesn't talk to any of the guys.
Yeah, so they
let the tour down, and to a certain extent he's probably right, because you need those guys, even if they're to be working their arse off in training. If you're playing the All Blacks, you need to be hit hard in training in the week line, because if those guys aren't doing it, I mean, so it's exactly like John says. It is a circular argument. Why should I try if the coach isn't going to give me a chance? The coach isn't going to give you a chance because you're not trying. Why should I try? Because etc. etc. So the problem is that. We see the thing is we don't know if this is happening. He seems to have thrown them under the bus, but we don't know. Maybe they're the type who will respond to that.
Well, maybe we don't know. That's what you said, right? We don't know. But I do remember shortly after that Lions tour in 2005, Michael Cheika came in and he gave a speech, I remember, and he says, lads, no one's ever heard of me before, so I'm all for the underdog, for the guy who hasn't got a chance. All of a sudden, we were seeing guys coming into the Leinster squad, the Jamie Heaslips, Luke Fitzgeralds, Rob Carney, all these guys that even he hadn't.
They haven't worked out so well.
No, not so well. But like even they hadn't.
That McLaughlin lad as well was a disaster.
They hadn't gone to the World Cup in 07.
Yeah.
And yet they're all featuring on the Heineken Cup winning team in 09. You know what I mean? Like he managed to.
And on a Lions tour.
He brought all those lads through, and can't really think of somebody that's jumping out. Maybe the talent isn't there. We've said that before, but at the same time, there hasn't been anyone sort of brought through or fast tracked through in the Leinster squad over the last 2 years.
See, there's two approaches to motivation. Well, there's 100, but the two big approaches to motivation that everyone seems to kind of the two, if you like, flags are: one, the arm around the shoulder, and two is the kick up the hole. Right? I don't know. Some people respond better to the arm around the shoulder. Personally, I never had any time for that. If I wasn't playing well, like when I was playing any sport, and I don't know what you were. If I wasn't playing well, I wanted to be told that I wasn't playing well, and none of this bullshit. I wanted the facts straight in front of me. So it's different things work for different players
at different times.
Sometimes
the same guy might need a kick.
Well, there's only 3 inches difference between a slap on the back and a kick in the
hole. And the other side of that is there's two approaches to developing a squad or a team. If you don't want to break between the firsts and the seconds, one is if you want to be in the first, go out there and grab me by the scruff of the neck and show me that you want to be in that first team, because it's not my job to get you there, it's your job to get there. The other side is this is an integrated squad. We're going to try the strength we get from being together. It's a gestalt. It's a favourite word of mine, where the sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and that's the other side of it. So I mean, we don't know. I'm not in the Leinster squad. I haven't a clue what way they are.
There's sometimes when the sum of the parts is a load of me whole.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Friday was one of those.
But anyway, the momentum that, as we kind of alluded to earlier, is certainly grown from Twitter and even, you know, from social media to get rid of O'Connor.
Yeah, I don't think that. I would suggest that Leinster Rugby are paying absolutely no attention to that whatsoever.
Well, the thing about a campaign like that is that people have to pay attention to it. Like, you know, we talk shite on here. People have to come and look under a rock and find this podcast and watch it. Like, a Twitter thing is focused, like it could be pointed at official Leinster Rugby Twitter, and they get stuff sent at them saying this guy is shite, get rid of him. That's a whole different ball. For me, that's a whole different ball game.
I think they'd be. I think they're Leinster Rugby are skilled enough in terms of social media usage. I don't think. I mean, how many people are actually active in the whole mock out hashtag mock out? How many? 10, 20?
I have no idea.
Even if you multiply it by 10, or even if you multiply it by 100, is it really that significant a number? I don't know. I don't think Leinster Rugby are going to be influenced by it in any way, shape, or form, because they've never been influenced by anything like that in the past.
Well, nor should they be.
I know, but like it is kind of groundbreaking because it hasn't happened before.
No, well, we haven't played that badly before.
Okay, fine, but like rugby in Ireland hasn't really had that happen to it yet.
There was no Twitter the last time Leinster played that bad. It didn't exist.
Right, I know, but
and let's be honest, a lot of the people who are tweeting about this weren't watching Leinster the last time that they played that poorly. True. You know, so I mean, there's an. I mean, you and I know. I mean, would anyone you played with, and you played with a lot of people because you played for a lot of teams because you were very poor. Right? Would anyone you played with in the 400 or 500 years that you played the game be a party to such a campaign?
No.
Same here.
Absolutely not.
No.
Well,
and I played with very few because most people wouldn't have me back, and that's the opposite side of it.
The one thing I would hope is that if this is an organised campaign to get rid of Matt O'Connor and it fails and he's there next season, will they shut up? Will they disable the thing, or will they, because he's going to go after the next season anyway. It's the end of his contract.
But they'll be like, would you not think it's a bit like George Hook that eventually he's going to say, "Oh, told you so, told you no," and he's gone now, and you know.
It's a quote from The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. A stopped clock tells the right time twice a day.
Well, anyway, look, we'll see. We don't know what's going to happen. We've still 2 more games to go, but there's a couple of other matches. There's actually very big attendance over in the Millennium Stadium for the.
JD3.
That's great to see.
It was 50,000 after those matches, you know.
Great to see.
Very good.
I mean, while we want to keep beating all the Welsh teams into eternity, realistically, if that happens, our league is effed. So, you know, we might as well get a strong Wales and a strong...
we want to keep beating them, but we want to keep
Welsh
beating them in really competitive, strong Welsh teams, and that's what they need. And a day like that helps bring. I mean, we were being a bit snarky about new people in the game earlier, but that brings new people into the game, and they're invaluable.
Yeah, but like they kind of put the final nail in our coffin. Ospreys beating Cardiff.
It wouldn't be the first time they put a nail in our coffin. No. That's what they do. I mean, I think it's actually in their their business plan. I think it's 0.7a. Screw Leinster.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've screwed ourselves quite nicely without any help from anyone else outside. We've dug our own grave on that. So,
but like we ended up 13. We're currently 13 points behind Ospreys, and we're 17 points behind Glasgow.
Is that all?
But like that's
frightening.
That's a monumental gap. With 2 games still remaining.
So even if Glasgow and Ospreys don't field the team for the next 2 games and just give the ball to the opposition and let them score a try every minute for 80 minutes,
we can't catch them.
We still can't catch them. And if our opposition do the same thing, we still can't catch them. So, that's how far away we are from a home quarter-final. So, yeah, sad times, but, that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So hopefully it'll make us stronger next season.
They are sad times, but I mean, I don't think it's not exactly disastrous. I mean, we've got good players coming
in. Not yet.
No, but it's not. I mean, we've got good players coming in next season. Hopefully but hopefully the summer will be spent, guys thinking about how best to maximise these new players coming in, and maybe a new way of going about things. Because the old way hasn't. I don't think we need to change the coach. What we need to do is for the coach to change. How he's approaching the game is not working for us. People say they can't see Matt O'Connor's game plan. I can actually see his game plan. I just don't think it's the right one.
Certainly doesn't suit Leinster.
No, it's not. His game plan is based on a fairly simple game of guys coming around the corner, and then when the ball gets to the backs, that they've created a one-on-one situation. I've said this before, and relying on the superior footwork or whatever skill of the Leinster player against his opposite number. There's an awful lot of variables involved in that to be basing an entire game on, but that's what we've done. I mean, that's how. And then we're playing the same kind of kicking game as Ireland. The only thing is Ireland are a lot better at it than we are. We're not executing it at all well. I mean, there's a validity to the thought behind it, but not to the way it's executed. But then the other side of that is, I mean, where's our kicking coach?
With Ireland.
Yeah.
He's also our skills coach. So what's going to happen there next season? Is he going to move permanently, and are we going to replace him?
Well, I doubt we'll see him between now and November.
Boys are gone for 6 months.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. If we do bring in new coaches underneath Matt O'Connor for next season, what happens when Matt O'Connor moves on at the end of the season? Are those guys left as hostages to fortune for the new coach? Will he be able to bring in his own guys?
Well, same thing happened. Same thing happened with Matt O'Connor. I mean, he was left with a coaching staff that wasn't of his selection initially. So I mean, that always happens to coaches. I mean,
and Joe Schmidt.
And Joe Schmidt was the same. He inherited
similarly with Ireland.
Yeah. Joe Schmidt inherited Czech's coaches, and he inherited some of Kidney's coaches. I mean, that happens all the time. I wouldn't necessarily be too concerned about that. The one thing I would be concerned about is if we, during the World Cup, we have new coaches in there and they develop a relationship with players, and then all the other guys come back. How did they integrate? That would be the only issue there. But I mean, we have the summer, because let's face it, we're not going to be too busy for the next couple of weeks.
One thing
we still have to win. We still have to win at least one of our.
You have to win both if we want fifth place.
Points,
we need 6 points. Yeah,
so it's guaranteed.
Yeah.
6th place. We're not guaranteed because the Scarlets could easily get 10 points, and if they do get 10 points, R6 will R6 do it?
Yes, it will.
I can't remember, but I think if we tie on points with the Scarlets, they're going to go ahead of us on wins. But what I was going to say was that Isa Nasiwa coming back with his professional approach, even if his playing isn't up after 2 weeks off, or 2 years off, 2 weeks, even after 2 years off, if his playing isn't up to the scratch that it was at 2 years ago, his professional attitude, if that rubs off on some of those second string players that are going to be there during the World Cup, if he can get to them and say, look, this is what it takes to be a Leinster player.
Yeah.
This is how hard you have to train. This is how, and Sexton as well, when he comes back after the World Cup, you know, that guy is not going to take any prisoners in terms of expectations of guys outside him. So if we can get some of those young academy backs through during the World Cup alongside Nasewa, and you know, have the best of them like there when Sexton comes back ready to.
You mentioned
we have hope.
The players not been old enough. Like, that's a very Irish attitude, isn't it?
It is.
You know, in other countries they do they take a risk and they'll say, oh yeah, well,
Wales,
like just say Penrose for argument's sake, or you know, in Wales they do it, Australia they do it, New Zealand they do it. If the guy
and South Africa,
if the guy shows any sign of promise, they do chuck him in and.
Well, it's an Irish attitude, but it's also an Irish practice in that we concentrate up to a certain level on rugby skills, and then we go for physical development. Whereas in those other countries with their huge populations and in certain cases genetic advantages, they go for physical development and then rugby skills. So,
or in New Zealand where they go for both.
Well, in New Zealand in New Zealand they generally have it. There's a lot of their players would have a genetic advantage over Irish players. So that you kind of have to leave that to one side. But there's two different approaches. The approach we have is turn good footballers into athletes, whereas in some other countries. Now England have actually kind of changed their tack over the last couple of years. Their tack used to be
gym monkeys anymore.
Their tack used to be all around turning athletes into footballers, but they've gone the other way. Guys like George Ford are the standard bearer for a new style of England player. Like for example, Paul Moriarty, the son of the Welsh back row, Moriarty. He's a different Ross Moriarty. He is.
He's assassin.
Yeah, but he's a different kind of. He's not huge. By any means. I mean, he's a big guy. He's a forward, but he's not a massive guy. He's a footballer first and foremost, and that's what England are doing now.
There's a few of those guys, Tipperich and Navidi and those guys in Wales. But what I was going to say is Wales. Like, if you look at the island of Ireland, which is what it is from a rugby perspective, that's 6 million people. Wales has 3 million. Now, they may or may not have more or less registered rugby players, but they can bring through guys at a much younger age than we can. They don't have a genetic advantage because they're just across the water from us. They don't have anything that we don't have, but they can bring through your George Norths, your Reece Webbs, your...
The thing is, they don't have something that we do have, and that's Gaelic football. I mean, you look at say, like we're here in Dublin, right? And you look at the Dublin County Board. The Dublin County Board makes the New Zealand RFU look amateurish in how in its professionalism and approach to developing the game. I mean, it's very hard for the IRFU has to work twice as hard as any other union to get a good athlete to play rugby, because you've got county boards in Dublin, you've got Cork, another strong rugby stronghold, another football and hurling stronghold. It's very, very difficult. We do have significant competition using a lot of the same skill set, and that's an issue. The skill set for rugby and football and soccer quite different. The skill set for Gaelic football, less so hurling, but certainly Gaelic football and rugby, very similar. Yeah,
which I think you're seeing more and more crossover now, though, than you used to.
Well, I know there was a significant attempt a couple of years ago to try and get that. Is it Brendan Murphy who plays for Carlow? I can't remember if it's Murphy. He went to Australia and Jackman tried to get him back, and he was trying to be brought back onto a development contract. Didn't quite work out. He went back to Gaelic football, as it happens. But yeah, I mean, it's a significant competition. I mean, in Wales, the Brogans will be playing rugby.
Yeah.
But
I mean, this year a mad thing happened that when a Gaelic football match was played in Ravenhill. That would never have happened 15 years ago.
I'll tell you what, a mad thing that's happened is that Darren Sweetenham in Cork is sticking with the rugby. Yeah, that's the mad thing. Yeah,
it is. Well, before we go, there's a big match at the weekend. There's Claremont.
I thought that was National Now Rugby Day.
Yeah.
Well, they were giving away free tickets on the Aviva Premiership website.
Can't be that big a match then, can it?
It's been a disaster. I mean, it's hard to keep a smile off my face. It has been an absolute disaster. It's been an unmitigated disaster from the start.
And they're going to have to stump up 20 mil to give to the Pro 12.
We still got to get paid. But here's the thing. I mean, it was a disaster that if 3 fat lads in somebody's living room or somebody's dining room could call this at the beginning of the season, how could they not realise it? Because we knew this was going to happen. And I mean, because I buy my tickets. I won't be doing it next year. Every year coming up, because you live in hope. I buy my tickets for the final at the beginning of the season. Knowing that if we're not there, and I can't go, at least I'll be able to shift them on. That's not going to be an option this year when they're giving tickets away.
Here's the thing, I can't remember, you probably remember this because you bought them. When you bought those tickets, was the match still supposed to be in the San Siro?
No, when I bought them they were in
Twickenham. Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure when they changed that. So it's a bit, they shot themselves in the foot, and it's not since 03 when we had a half full Lansdowne Road for Perpignan versus...
there was a lot of empty seats at the match last year in the Millennium.
Again, Saracens, who are not a very well supported team, they've a core of 10,000 supporters at best.
Were delayed.
All of that horseshit, yeah. They've a fairly low core support, plus every other football or rugby team in England seems to hate them. Everybody bloody hates them, for rightly or wrongly. And Toulon, who don't travel, or their fans don't travel.
Well, their stadium, they play in front of 15,000 most weeks.
I mean, people forget. I mean,
it's a long way to Toulon.
Toulon is. No, I'm just saying that
Toulon's fan base is not a wealthy fan base. I mean, there was never any chance of them travelling in any huge numbers. I mean, they do what they can, but they don't have that much money. Claremont's slightly better off, but they're not travelling in huge numbers either. I mean, they took 5,000 tickets. Toulon returned 40% of their application. Or their allocation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be a disaster.
But it's a very long way to travel.
And they're talking...
from the south of France up to London is a long old journey.
We travel in greater numbers.
3,000 of us travel down to Marseille,
If it was a final, do you think there'd be only 3,000?
Yeah, well, we have a tradition of maybe travelling more or going abroad. And don't forget, there was 80,000 in Twickenham 3 years ago, but there was probably... I can't... I'm sure there was a high percentage of those where Irish people who lived in London,
of course,
or lived in the UK,
of course, yeah.
And the other side of that is, I mean, they're talking about they've sold so many tickets, But I'd say they've sold a lot of them in Ireland.
Yeah, I'd say there's two. That's two in your wallet, as you say.
And there's a lot of people here.
You're not going over.
I'm not going over. No.
Most of the people I know who bought tickets last year, there's only one guy I know that's
because
actually going.
Ultimately, it only half matters how many tickets they sell, because that's okay.
Bodies in the stadium.
It's bodies in the stadium, and the
cardboard.
The other side of it is
just saying CGI.
If they think that they've got 40,000 people there, they have to pay for stewarding. They have to pay for amenities, and they have to pay for policing for 40,000 people. And if only 20,000 show up, they still have to pay for the services. Yeah. So it's,
but it's our
blue
ribbon event.
It's also predictable.
But it's the blue ribbon event of the sport that we love, and it's sad, really, that it's not going to be a full house with 80,000 people, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
You know, we surely want this competition to succeed.
And this competition,
the European competition,
we want European competition to succeed. This one, I couldn't care less if it lives or dies. I want a pan-European.
There isn't an alternative.
I want a pan-European rugby competition to survive. The way this one is organised and set up, I can take it or leave it. I mean,
it is what it is, Dave. That's what
I know.
That's what
we have to play the hand we're dealt. I mean, even the junior competition is not great either.
Yeah.
I mean,
that should nearly be scrapped because it's not been taken seriously.
Well, they might change it next year, and French teams might play if they realise that they'll qualify for.
They might,
but it's a bit like the Europa League in football, that it's nearly a hindrance than a help to the.
The one thing the Europa League has is a huge amount of cash behind it. That's the one advantage. I mean, it pales in significance beside the Champions League, but it's still a huge amount of money. I mean, there's more
relative
money.
To rugby,
there's probably more money in one Europa League match than there is in the entire Champions Cup. That's in rugby. That's just the nature of the difference. I think that they're going to have to go away and rethink it. Maybe the whole Anglo-centric way it was run was a mistake. Maybe bowing.
You mean in Switzerland?
Switzerland was anywhere but Ireland, which is what they were looking for.
Switzerland was to placate the French more than anything else.
I think it was more to placate the English. I think that the French need the whole insistence of kowtowing to the French in order to, compact the entire tournament was a mistake. Now there's a lot of talk next year that the final is back to being in mid-May. But when's the semi-final?
Probably 2 weeks before that.
Yeah, unless the tournament is elongated, it makes no difference because everything's 2 weeks later next year because of the World Cup. So it's hard to know. I don't even know who I want to win. To be honest with you, I want both teams to lose.
Come on, you have to be up for Claremont.
No, I'm not. I don't have to be up for anyone.
Okay, well, I have to be up for Claremont.
I want Leinster to be knocked out by the champions. On the other hand, I don't want another team getting onto 3 trophies.
Exactly.
And on a third hand, because I'm Vishnu, I am sick and tired of listening to Claremont whinge. Everybody loves them because they're plucky losers. They're
still losers.
They've had plenty of practice at it.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see them break their duck, and I wouldn't like to see Toulon get 3 in a row because nobody's ever done that before, and hopefully nobody ever will until we win 3 more.
That's why I want both teams to lose.
Yeah, well,
Stade Francais. I want Stade Francais to win.
Unfortunately, they can't both lose because if they're drawing, they'll be playing extra time and then penalties or dancing around maypoles or whatever they decides it.
It probably is dancing around maypoles or something. God only knows what the English have planned.
Well, it is the 1st of May, or roughly the 1st of May, isn't it?
It's just a pity that what was once the whole folk. I mean, okay, we had the disaster in 2003, and then the ERC went in and they kind of started things that they got criticised for heavily selling tickets at the beginning of the season and stuff like that, but that not guaranteed but ensured a fuller house than we've had since. And then we're back to there. We're back. I mean, they've literally taken the tournament 12 years back in time.
Well, arguably the final in I think it was Edinburgh. Was it 2 years later that Toulouse won? That was a shocking game as well. Like, it was arguably worse game than the one in between Perpignan and Dublin.
Yeah, but in terms, it might have been a bad game, but in terms of
that's all I'm talking about.
All right, the attendance was fine.
The
attendance was fine in Edinburgh. That was the year that, if you remember, Guy Novez was arrested because they thought he was some kind of pitch invader.
But he climbed into the stand, wasn't it?
He was doing something that was unusual, and they just nicked him.
You don't know who I am, you fool.
But
I think he said that.
Yeah. It's just a pity that this tournament has sunk to this low where they're giving away free tickets and they don't even have Tiny Temper. At least Saracens went to the effort of getting Tiny Temper. You can have a little bit of UK garage, a little bit of grime, you know. None of that now. You didn't understand any of those words, did you, Jason?
No, I didn't. On that note, thanks a million, Dave, for educating me, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers.